Welcome to the Dynasty Theory YouTube channel. Have to get the cough out of the way, right? But so one of these things, I've been wanting to do a trade show for a really long time, but I always thought that I would do it more for the patrons in the Patreon, for the Dynasty Theory and do it in a written form. But the problem is Dynasty trades are so hard to articulate in a written form that I just figured a video was so much easier. So we're just going to go over a few trades that I pulled from the Dynasty Daddy website. I definitely recommend going there. They pull trades every 8 hours with over 150,000 leagues. So you get up-to-date information on what people are actually trading recently. You can look at different league settings and see how it goes. But I'm not going to take up a lot of your time today, so we'll just go with the first trade that I pulled up. This one, as you can see at the bottom, it's a 12-team super flex league with PPR and a small 0.5 tight end premium. And I always try to remind people with those small tight end premiums, it's not really a premium. Some people really try to add a lot of value to tight ends, but really just don't do it in a 0.5. You get up to 0.75 or the full point for tight ends, then it's definitely going to change the league dynamic. But for my own personal teams, I don't make any change from a 0.5 premium to a no premium. To me, it's the exact same kind of league. So what we're looking at here is Marquise Brown for Jaylen Warren and a 26 first. Marquise Brown signed with the Chiefs, and we're going to have the hype there. We're going to have that hype building throughout the whole offseason, and it's not going to stop really. So like his value is going to slowly creep up. I think right now, John has tiers for the patrons for anyone who's interested. He has them right between the kind of like a late first value. And I think that's more than fair with Marquise Brown. So as he slowly keeps climbing, I think that's kind of where he's going to end up being the 109, 110 value kind of by August. With Jaylen Warren, on the other hand, I don't know how he's going to gain value unless there's a Najee Harris injury. We all love Arthur Smith, and Jaylen Warren is a fine running back. He's perfectly good for the NFL. He's going to produce probably close to the same that he did this past season with, almost 800 rushing yards, 4 to 5 touchdowns, maybe 500 receiving yards, something really good like that. But the problem is his dynasty value isn't going to really change unless we see an injury to Najee Harris. But then you could add in that 26 first. So you could kind of look at this. Marquise Brown right now is a late first value. And on the other side, you're already getting a 26 first, and who knows what that first is going to be. There's always a little bit of a depreciation, for a lack of a better term, with those future picks that are in multiple years. So like if this was a 25 first, then for me, it'd be almost a slam dunk. You just take the 25 first. The 26, although it should be the same value, we don't really look at that way until next January, next February, when it is actually just the next year's first that we're adding on. For me, though, I'm still going to take the 26 first year because as much as I love Marquise Brown, and I'm not even paying much attention to the stats he put out last year because he was injured for a lot of last year, didn't have a real quarterback throwing him the ball, and he's going to Mahomes. And the hype will continue to be there for him. But for me, that 26 first is just such a set value that's going to continue to gain. We've seen these veteran wide receivers go to good landing spots and fail before. And while I don't think Marquise Brown is definitely going to fail, I don't know if he's ever going to be worth a mid first. Is he ever really going to be worth the 105 or the 106 in the 25 draft class? I just don't think his value is going to be there. So right now, you could get off of him, and you could get Jaylen Warren, who you're going to be able to use in your flex spot, and you're getting a 26 first. So for me, that's the side I'm going with here. Now to move on to the next trade, I want to stand Marquise Brown because the first, a lot of times in Dynasty, people are actually always going to go for the draft picks, right? It's what we go to. It's the pretty thing. It's what we always like. But now I want to go with a running back that not everybody loves, but the values are so close. Now, it just really depends on how you like building your Dynasty teams. We have Marquise Brown and DeAndre Swift. Again, it's a 12-team super flex, but this time it has the 1 full point premium for tight ends. So it does change the values a little bit, but it doesn't really matter in this case because we're not moving a draft pick or a tight end. But between these two, DeAndre Swift, he was good for the Eagles last year. Wasn't great. He had 1,000 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, nothing really to speak of in the passing game that any other back in that position wouldn't have got. But Marquise Brown goes to that spot again, right? You could see the Hollywood side of things just continue. Maybe he's worth the 110 here in 3 months. I don't think DeAndre Swift is ever going to be up that high until we actually see it on the field in September and October. There's going to be a lot of talk is, well, Caleb Williams is going in. The Chicago Bears aren't good at, as we saw with RG3 yesterday, a lot of people just really don't like that franchise. And I actually think Caleb Williams is going into an absolute money spot. He has great wide receivers. He has a good running back. He has a good tight end. The offensive line's a little sketchy, but they have draft capital to fix it. So with DeAndre Swift, I think a lot of the talking point is going to be, is he going to get the red zone work, or is it going to be Roschon Johnson? Is it going to be Khalil Herbert? Is it going to be someone else they bring in? Because they probably do end up bringing in somebody. It might not matter, but that is going to, there's always going to be that but with DeAndre Swift. Yeah, but the Lions didn't really like him. Yeah, but the Eagles weren't willing to keep him for more than 1 year after trading for him. And it's really hard for a running back to gain value until you actually see him on the field doing 120 yards week 1, 120 yards week 2, throws in a couple touchdowns in there, then all of a sudden his value starts to rise, right? Then he could start to pass that Marquise Brown. But you don't really see it happen throughout the offseason unless it's a spot like Saquon Barkley got or Josh Jacobs, to where they're locked in as the number 1 back and you could see their value rise. So for me, I'm actually going to go with Marquise Brown here. I like DeAndre Swift. As you can see, I still have his college jersey behind me. I guess it's on that side. And I like the guy. It's dynasty value is important. As much as we want to look at our teams and be like, hey, I really want this running back, there's times to where the smart move is just to hold on to those wide receivers because that's what everybody covets in dynasty. So kind of a same trade with this next one. Exact same league settings. We have a 12-team Superflex, full PPR, 1 point premium. But again, no draft picks are involved. No tight ends are involved in this trade. And you could see this was done in the last day. But you have Deontay Johnson for Zamir White. And you could see what the Zamir White, the guy trading for him, is believing in. He's like, hey, yeah, they brought in Alexander Madison yesterday, but I'm not really worried about it because he wasn't any good on the Vikings and he was pretty much non-existent once Ty Chandler actually started getting work. And then Deontay Johnson is going with Bryce Young, who was terrible last year. And you could see that narrative that you could start building up for Zamir White over Deontay Johnson. The problem is, while you can build that narrative, the rest of your league isn't going to really build that narrative with you. So I'm looking at this as Zamir White is going to be competing with Alexander Madison, probably someone else they bring in the draft because the Raiders have every single one of their draft picks still. They still have Amir Abdullah. I'm sure there's someone else I'm forgetting that's a running back on their roster, right? So it's not like he's just this locked-in guy that you could say he's going to go out for 250 touches. What you can't say with Deontay Johnson, though, the dude's going to, if we were doing projections today, we'd probably have him for close to 150 targets. There's really no one else for him to throw to. Jonathan Mingo is almost an afterthought at this point. Adam Thielen, he's old. He could probably play in the slot a little bit, but he's not really going to be that significant contributor that the Panthers need. Deontay Johnson gets open, man. And I think Bryce Young is going to take a huge step forward this year. So while you're looking at this trade, be like, oh, it's not even close. You could see what the new manager who has Zamir White is trying to do. So always just be careful with these running backs because all it takes with a guy like Zamir White, what happens if the Raiders go out and take Trey Benson in the 3rd round of the NFL draft? All of a sudden, his value drops to nothing. Now, put it on the other side. Say the Panthers already gave away a whole bunch of their draft capital, but say they go out and they get someone in the 2nd or 3rd round that's a wide receiver. It's not going to touch Deontay Johnson's value at all because we already know what he's locked in as. We know why they traded for him. So for me, it's be very careful on trades like this, even though you could see the hype. Oh, if Zamir White does get that 300 attempts this upcoming season, all of a sudden you could probably get the 105, 106 for him. The odds of that happening are just super low. This happens throughout every dynasty offseason to where there's a running back who starts to get hype, gets more hype. Damian Pierce, we've had it with Kenyon Drake before. Damian Williams was a big one of mine that I missed on. Just be super careful with these kind of running backs and don't trade a really good asset for an asset that you hope is going to get better. But that's all that I have for today. I want to say thank you to everybody who watched. Please subscribe if you like it. I'm going to try to do a lot more of these episodes here, probably one a week. I'll be out of town here in 2 weeks, so I won't get one out then, but I will definitely get one out next week. If there's any players you want me to talk about, please let me know, and I'll make sure to go on Dynasty Daddy and pull up some recent trades and go from there. But thanks, everybody. Have a good time.